Yeah, okay, cool, let's go. I'm covered in flowers, which is nice, it smells rosy. So I was originally going to do this in the morning, so good morning. I've always wanted to do a keynote. I think keynote is a great word. It just sounds very authoritative, it sounds very powerful, and I'm just excited that you are all letting me do it. I feel very lucky, it's a good birthday gift. A reason that I want to do a keynote and why I've always wanted to do a keynote is because I think keynotes suck. Most of them sound like TED Talks. TED Talks are mostly worthless. And I think, actually, while I'm at it, I think most conferences and conventions also suck. I'm going to say it. Conventions and conferences grew out of academic and nerd communities. That's where they're from. It's passionate weirdos getting together to just talk about this thing that they love. And they're doing it because they love a thing. That's why. But when you go to a conference or a convention today, there are a lot of companies there. And there are a lot of people there who are trying to influence you. I was at a con recently, and there was somebody there who just had a booth with information about a thing that they cared about. That was it. And I was like, this is awesome. And it's like talk to me. Like let your nerd passion wash over me and energize me, and it did. And then sheepishly, after we talked for a while, he was like, yeah, this guy came over. He said some name, and I didn't know the name. And he's like, oh, he's really big on YouTube. And I'm like, okay, I don't know who that is. He said, yeah, he came by and he told me, like, you should really be selling stuff. Like, why aren't you selling stuff? Like, or you should have why aren't you gotta get your YouTube channel, like, referenced here. And the guy's like, I don't have a YouTube channel. I just like this thing that I'm talking about. My heart broke in that moment, right? Because I think that gatherings like this should be about passion and should be about things that you intrinsically care about and shouldn't be about people trying to sell you things or trying to influence you with a capital I. So, in short, I'm stoked, and I've been using the word weirdos a lot, and I hope nobody finds that pejorative. It is a loving word that includes me, and I define a weirdo as somebody who is looking for something that they just don't find in their day-to-day life, right? They get up, they go to school, they go to work, and there's something missing. There are so many reasons why something could be missing for you. And when you go and you find that thing that just makes you feel good or makes you feel safe or makes you feel excited, people might find it peculiar. That's fine. I think a lot of people find this peculiar. I've heard multiple anecdotes about just trying to explain what we're all doing to like friends and family. And I love that. That's who I want to be with. That's who I want to hang out with. So for us, what is our thing? Why are we here? You could just say, well, it's Tilda Town. That's the thing. But what is Tilda Town, right? I've had 10 years to think about that. And spoiler, the whole talk is just me thinking about that. So what is it, right? It's not a Linux server. It is, but that's not the point. If I told you all tomorrow, like, sorry, we're a BSD community now, would you care? Like, it would be a little annoying. Be like, okay, Dad, why are you doing that? But I don't think you would leave. It's not a Linux. We're not a Linux community. It's just Linux is a means to an end. It's not any single technology. It's not even a single machine. It's not even a single person. So the word that I've kind of started using about what Tilda Town is that it's a vision, which I think maybe sounds a little religious or high-minded, but stick with me. Tilda Town is aspirational, and it is a transformative way of looking at the world itself, looking at human relationships, looking at technology. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what kind of gets us here, and I think that's what people have been talking about today. The way that it makes us feel, the way that it helps us view the world and look at other people. So I want to talk about that vision, and I want to talk about, I want to make an honest attempt to articulate what that vision is. I want to explore it and get some more precise words about it. Why do I want to do that? Why can't I just enjoy it? It's indulgence, it's self-indulgence. When I first made the town 10 years ago, it was very crass. I wanted to make friends. That was it. There was no, I was not writing keynotes, I was not thinking big thoughts, I was just trying to make some friends online. That was it, I was lonely. I figured that would happen, people would get bored and leave, I'd shut it down, but I'd make some cool friends. Slides are very detailed, as you can see. So this was 2014, 10 years ago. And this was kind of the first phase of Tilda Town. It's the first era for me, personally. I was working at Puppet Labs at a job that I didn't really care for. I don't know, it was fine. I had strong feelings about it. And when I made the town about a month prior, I had undergone an incredibly drastic life change. I was on the far side of deadly depression. I had shingles. You ever had shingles? Sucks a lot. Do not get shingles. I had stress-induced shingles, right? And I was living on the floor. My friend let me move in with him. One of my favorite people in the entire world. And gave me an air mattress. I slept on the floor, put away every day. It was a rough time. And because of this giant life change, that was what was motivating this desire to maybe find some new friends, right? So, F-trained, told a club, blah, 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 and I was like, oh, I'll just copy him. Anger drove me. I didn't like that he closed it so early, or closed signups so early. So I did it. The origin story is online, you can read it. But the point is that people showed up, and the people that showed up were really cool. I got to be friends with them. And as the year went on, I was like, mission accomplished. Everyone just has to leave now, and I get to keep cool friends like in song. And it's like I would say things like, I'll never close the doors of town, we're going to be around forever. And it's not that I didn't mean those things. It's that I felt very safe saying them, because I was like, people are going to move on. I'll make it read only. I'm not going to delete the content, but I'm not going to shut it down. But people will leave, right? This is the internet. People don't stick around. So I waited, and I waited, and I waited. And I kept waiting for that course to be run. But instead, people kept showing up. I went from this initial phase into a new phase, which I am even less proud of, which I call the oh God, please everyone leave phase. This came about as the reality of administration and moderation really came into focus. It's not easy, it's difficult. So this is a long period of time, and I don't want to make it seem like my life is just worrying about Tilda. I have a whole lot more life than that. During these years is when I met the person with whom I would be with forever, who's right here. And I did a lot of other cool things that I'm super proud of. But today we are talking about Tilda. So in this phase, whether I was conscious of it or not, I was kind of trying to sabotage the server. I would ignore it for weeks. I would go over a month at a time. I didn't even log in. I was just like, please God, just let it die. I don't want to look at that. I did no moderation. I just let it lie fallow. Stuff broke. I am not proud of that. Yeah, it's embarrassing. I'm sorry. The issue was bigger than town too, because in this time period, much like Britt was talking about earlier, I was really losing my ability to extract joy from computers. And unfortunately, there's a lot of computer in town. I struggled to program for fun. I got into some really bad habits. I would blast hard techno and just drink and drink and drink and just try to whip myself into a frenzy and get code written. That's why we have a wiki, and it's terrible, and I'm really sorry about it. And the returns diminished. That's not sustainable. You just can't drink your way into success programming or anything. I'm fine now, so don't worry about it. So yeah, no, not a great era for the town, but still people stuck around. You still wouldn't leave. And it's like there's this angry drunk in a house, and cute cats just keep coming in through an open window and just curling up and just like, yeah, I live here. Hi, I'm gonna purr, and I'll never leave. So yeah, rough times for all. But that did not last forever. We got to a new phase. I finally accepted that town was not going to go anywhere anytime soon, and it was entering into. I entered into this new phase. By this time in my life, a lot of stuff was going great for me. However, I had a job at GitHub that I was just riding into a Microsoft branded toilet. That wasn't making me happy. So I still had some stuff to work out around computers and joy, but I started checking the town every day. I monitor the system, I check on the resources, and I perform moderation. I talk to people a lot more. I step in when something is tense or bad. I didn't used to do that. But I started doing that during these years, and unfortunately a new anxiety emerged because of the way my brain works. So previously, I thought, people won't leave, even if I do nothing. After deciding to show up and care more, my anxiety was, no matter if I don't do enough, people will leave. right? If the brain just kind of inverted the fear, it was all irrational. And I don't think that phase ended until this event started to materialize. Like this event was kind of a catalyst for the new current phase of 2024. So the big realization here, of course, is what I've already hinted at, which is that people don't come to town for me. They are not, showing up or leaving based on me and my actions. I can make it a better place. I can make it a worse place. But the thing that draws people in is bigger than me. And I started to feel grateful and thankful. Like now I'm just contributing to this cool thing that's ongoing. It's not just a rodeo that I'm commanding. So that is where your indulgence comes in. I have arrived at this this good place of the town, and I want to go through kind of these 4 aspects of what I think makes town what it is, and what constitutes this vision. So this first concept I call dark paths to bright rooms. So to start, I want you to imagine that you are 6 years old, it's 1994, and there is a machine in your house that you do not understand. This machine has always been there. You can't remember a time without it, but yet no one around you has any idea really how to work it. It's just been there. You learn that it's a computer, but it still remains a mystery beyond that. Now imagine that you can cajole and convince your mother to come and hit this thing that's called a keyboard and evoke these arcane rituals, and then suddenly this thing goes from stark white text on a dark background to an explosion of color. Right? I was getting my first taste of like CGI graphics, and I was entranced. I loved it. And so for me, this was an MS-DOS computer. It came from an uncle who he handed it down to us. He was like, you guys gotta have a computer apparently. It's the 1980s, get with it. No one knew how to use it. It was just there. My mom learned enough to run programs. And so she would start word processors or games for me. I learned how to do it myself eventually. My favorite game was King's Quest IV, Perils of Rosella. And in that game, you get to explore a fantasy world. You get to wander around this colorful big place that has haunted forests and castles and mountains and a bright, beautiful, shining ocean, and even a whale whose innards you get to explore and walk around in. And I loved it. And the thing that really caught me, though, that really grabbed my imagination, was seeing the stuff in the background, seeing other parts of this virtual world, seeing these mountains off in the distance, and saying, well, why can't I walk over there? It's depicted, like, I don't think the computer would lie to me. I didn't know computers yet. So like, clearly if it's showing me, I should be able to go there. And my limited understanding of computers and probably the show Reboot convinced me that like, if they're depicting it, it has to exist. Somewhere in this machine, somewhere in this beige box, there has to be that mountain range, or that whale anus, or whatever, something. It's gotta be deep inside of that labyrinth. So I thought that if I just wandered enough and explored enough and clicked enough, I could find all those faraway places. Turns out that's a great way to play an adventure game. I got pretty far for being that young in King's Quest, just clicking everything. So fast forward to the 2000s, I'm a teenager, I'm online, I've read Gibson, Dick, Stevenson, and my childhood obsession with this idea of faraway hidden places tucked away inside of computers has only intensified, right? I'm online now. And instead of pixelated mountains, I'm trying to find weird websites. I'm trying to find chat rooms. I'm trying to find IRC servers. I'm trying to find these new kinds of networked places that are hidden out there. I was trying to find secret pathways, obscured doors, dark alleys, locked away chambers. I felt and still feel that this kind of investigation might lead to unexpected beauty, or some kind of sacred knowledge, or just some cool friends. I'm talking about this because just about every town user has done this, whether you realize it or not. We don't advertise. I have barely presented about the town. I did a lightning talk once, 2017, I don't remember. I don't go out there and market for us. I don't go out there and pitch this idea to people and say, hey, you should join. A common path for ending up here is to end up on somebody's user page and think, wow, what a great page. I love this page. And then have the thought, the leap to, what's that URL? And then editing the URL, and then going down to the root domain, and then kind of exploring again from there, and then thinking, I hear this a lot, like, I don't know what this is, but I ended up here by editing this URL, and I think I want to be part of it. So this curiosity has compelled people to take an unilluminated path. There were no streetlights to do that. There's no like home icon in the corner of your town page. You had to turn down a dark alleyway. You had to go into the unexpected. And in my estimation, by doing so, you found a bright place. All right, so this next aspect of the vision, the more I say that, the more ridiculous I feel, is called drowning in heart blood. And this phrase is an amalgam of vulnerability, authenticity, intimacy with other people online. So I want you to do a thought experiment. Imagine that you are looking at a Facebook group about personal finance, like stocks and shit. Imagine that you are staring at the input box to make a post. Now imagine that you've typed out a message. You haven't sent it yet, but you've typed it out, right? And the message says, when I see a certain kind of car, it reminds me of a friend I've lost. And I have to struggle not to cry. You've typed that out. So imagine now you're hovering over the post button, that blue, hideous square. How do you feel? I would imagine you don't feel good, right? Are you gonna post that on a Facebook group about personal finance? No. We've all learned that that kind of vulnerability is just not really what the internet is for. I would feel dread. I would want anything but to hit that button. The internet has become a harsh place. Admitting that a particular kind of thing can make you feel a particular kind of way is seen as a weakness to be preyed upon. It can become weaponized against you, if not by individual trolls, then by companies bent on advertising to you at your lowest moments. But I think vulnerability is about more than that. It's not just about sad stuff, and it's not just about hard stuff. I think vulnerability is thinking about the why of our feelings, the why of our opinions. It's about coming into chat and saying, I love Walker, Texas Ranger. It's a TV show from the 90s. And getting the response, cool. Well, why do you like it? I want to know. And that's not a hostile why. It's a curious why. It's an attempt to understand the emotions at play when this person who showed up into chat watches Walker, Texas Ranger. It is when we learn about these kinds of emotional engines inside of us that we can make durable connections with each other. A lot of communities are based on a shared fandom or a shared opinion. The delineation of those communities is clear. The in-group and the out-group is very explicit. A is a member of community X if A has a positive sentiment about Z. That's it, that's all you need. You're there, you're on a fandom page. But town is very different. We are collectively looking for what's underneath sentiment. We're trying to answer the question, why do we like what we like? Why do we do what we do? What can I learn about myself by understanding something about how Walker, Texas Ranger makes you feel about yourself? So in practice, how does this work? Right, I've said a lot of lofty words, a lot of hypotheticals. In practice, I think first you have to lose the concept of your real name. I think that is a very loaded phrase. The name on your ID or your driver's license is arbitrary, it's just another handle. We embrace pseudonyms on the town. We come up with our handles, we wear them proudly. I think pseudonyms get a really bad rep. They're associated with flaming and trolling and hurting people online. But what I've observed is that they can do the opposite. They can free someone to express something that they might otherwise not say. Part of encouraging the use of pseudonyms is allowing for fluid identities. You can rebirth yourself on town. You can show up and be someone different from who you are during your day-to-day life. You can show up, you can sign up again. I'm not gonna know. Be someone else. You can grow with the town because we've decoupled from that thing on that driver's license in your pocket. So from a community and safety perspective, yeah, you might push back and it's like, well, what if you ban someone and they come back? Like, the hard truth that there's nothing I can do. I don't know when somebody that I've banned has come back if they change their information. But we ban behavior. We don't ban people. If someone returns and they seem like a new person, and they're behaving in a totally different way that is healthy, positive, engaging, supportive, why would I ban them again? Tilda Town is 10 years old, and so, we're looking back, we're thinking about history. Are you the same person you were 10 years ago? I'm definitely not. I'm definitely not the person that I was 20 years ago, which is good for all of us. So people change, and allowing for that change contributes to a willingness to share and for vulnerability, which is, I think, exactly what Jesse was talking about earlier. It's a myth propagated by entities like Facebook that you have one static being, one static name. They have inflicted a very serious philosophical crime upon us, the idea that human existence is a fixed thing, that we have permanent qualities attached to our driver's license and our forms. That's never been true. That's a fabrication. That's artificial. I argue that a driver's license is as artificial as any account on any website. It's just another handle. So what other things do we do ongoing to keep vulnerability possible? I think the first line of defense is our application process, which I presented this morning. We talked about that a lot. And once you've arrived at the town, a very key tenet of this place is that stuff stays on the town. It's up to you when you publish to the public web. I hand you a default public HTML page, but you have to bring the intent to publish. You have to bring the intent to put yourself out there in public. By default, you're on the server. There's very clear walls there. I think that is a very good default behavior for encouraging vulnerability. Another defensive mechanism is isolation. I think that this is a difficult lesson to learn. I have resisted calls to integrate with other systems for a long time. Tilda Team, Tilda Club. And they'll reach out and say like, well, we should really share Git hosting, or we should share the school news site, or we should share like this thing. I think I look very irritable and perhaps even irascible, but it's very intentional when I say no. I do think this is best for the community to stay isolated, to do our own thing, to stay small, to build our own services if we want them. I think there's an urge in software to generalize very quickly. I think repetition is seen as deeply flawed, but I posit the opposite. Repetition is how evolution happens. When we do the same thing over and over, but as different people with different frames of references, we inevitably come up with new ways to do them. We mutate, we change, we evolve. So no, repetition is not inherently bad. It's every time we do something, every time we create a community, every time we reach out, it's a chance to do something a little bit differently. It's redemptive. So no, let's not pool all of our services and our machines. Let's not bridge our chats more than we've already done. Let's stay apart, but respectfully. So the final key is moderation, which I've mentioned a few times. Took me a long time to get good at it. It kind of tracks in my years of therapy. So like I feel like my dollar, per hour of therapy is going really far. I think everyone in the town benefits. I was bad at moderation for a long time. But now I look for where tensions lie. I try to learn what upsets people. I try to keep an eye on things. I reach out in private. And moderation is about conversation. I don't reach for bans right away. We talk about behavior. And I try to apply the same scrutiny to somebody's behavior as I might apply to their opinions about Walker, Texas Ranger. Why'd you say that? What is your goal in saying that? Are you listening? Like, did you notice that somebody responded and said, I didn't like that thing that you did? It's tough, but I think it's worth it. I'm not the only one doing this work, and I deeply appreciate the other users who take on that burden. I called this section Drowning in Heartblood based on a poem by a weird, forgotten dude named George Darley. George Darley was an Anglo-Irish poet he was born in the late 1700s, and that dude was so nervous he couldn't talk to people. Just couldn't do it. His anxiety was that bad. So he decided to live in isolation and just exist by writing letters to all of his friends. He was eloquent and funny and lovable and intelligent. And he wrote these frenzied, epic, sweeping, emotional, romantic poems. Romantic that era style, sometimes they're romantic. But I mention him here because I think he would have really liked Old Town. Why are we on IRC? Let's be real. Okay, so this next part is called These Strange Machines. I said earlier that Town wasn't just a Linux server. That's still true, but obviously computers are an inextractable part of Tilted Town. We like them. I think that's fair to say. The computer is a special kind of thing, I think very worthy of liking. A computer is not quite a tool like a hammer, it's not quite something like a telephone, it's not a brain, but it's not all of those things. I think it is kind of a hammer, it is kind of a telephone, it is kind of a brain. A computer is a breathing thing. It breathes in things like touch and light and shadow and sound. It breathes out many of the same things, including touch, the teledildonics, the magic of teledildonics. A computer is a strange machine. It can purr or it can hiss. It is born, but it can die. It is a funnel through which the world can pass and come out changed. Personally, I find this intoxicating, and I suspect some of you do too. And I argue that before Ada Lovelace and Babbage drunkenly tried to compute their way out of gambling debt, there really was nothing very much like the computer. Since then, we've lived in an era defined by it. We're here talking and meeting and making friendships because of computers. That's undeniable. But I would be remiss to not recognize that computers are also the foundation of a whole lot of suffering. We carry these punishment devices in our pockets that yell and prod and mule at us until we look at them. They demand that we clock into our low-paying jobs, these jobs that hate us, and rat us out if we clock out from the parking lot instead of in the Amazon warehouse. They manipulate our minds, they manipulate our lives, our wallets, and our feelings. So I'm definitely not saying that computers are just good. Stop. I'm not saying that they're just magical. Stop. I'm saying that the magic of computers comes from the ways in which we might use them. Definitely not the way that they might use us. I argue that when we use a computer, we become an entirely new kind of thing. We become an even stranger machine than the computer itself, or a human. We've added this thing into our phantasmagoric feedback loop. We become cyborgs. But unless we remember ourselves and our intentions and our emotional engines, we risk contributing to the nightmares wrought by capitalist bureaucratic computing. I think we all get this. I hope we all get this. I think we're all on the same page. The town asks that humans show up, slow down, get quiet, and think, what am I doing with this computer? What am I going to do with this power that I have now as this very strange machine, this cyborg thing? What am I going to do in this moment? Because we're not defined by algorithmic content, we're not defined by checklists, we're defined by a prompt that beckons you to do something. Are there shortcomings? Yeah, we talked about that earlier. But I think that intentionality is the door to having a good time with these things. Okay, so this one is shorter. Grave robbing Radio Shack is the final section. So I've had this kind of interaction multiple times in my life where I'm talking to somebody who is not a software engineer, they're not a UX designer, somebody who is an expert in some discipline, right? They have some career, they have some job, and they interact with computers in the course of doing that discipline or that job. The computers are like a tool that they do to do the big thing that they are really good at. And this conversation goes something like this. Oh man, fuck this thing, it's slow and it crashed and it's laggy and I'm just so sick of the software that we have to use. It just like deleted this thing or it's down today. And eventually they'll often say something like, but at least it's better than what we had before, right? And so I'll press them and be like, well, what was the previous system like? What was it like to compute at work before you had this thing? And often they describe this text thing. I had to type stuff in, and I got responses, and it was just there were no pictures. And if you press a little bit further, you'll often hear like, well, no, it didn't crash ever, and it didn't lag, and it didn't delete my stuff. And I was actually really good at using it. I was really fast, and I knew all the shortcuts. And the conversation just kind of drifts away, right? And I'm not criticizing these people. I'm not making fun. I just really like user interface research, so that is my angle on this. So what I have observed is that people who are experts in disciplines other than software engineering or user interface design are making an aesthetic judgment on software. They are looking at new software and they're saying, well, that must be better because I like the way it looks. It's got shiny colors and I can click stuff and it slides in and it slides out. And also my organization had to pay way more money for it. So it has to be better, right? And that's just not always the case. Old ideas are not inherently bad. Individual things might have sucked in the past, but that being old is not a guarantee of crap. So that's part of our mission statement on the homepage, or at least it used to be. It was to use old things to do new things. Yet we are not a retro tech community, right? We've never been a retro tech community. If you're under the impression that we are, sorry. We use technology that is considered retro, but it's not because we fetishize a nostalgic past. We have figuratively found the great abandoned fries and Radio Shacks and micro centers. We have found these Empyrean tombs full of dusty computers and old manuals and programming languages, and we're just going to town. We're jumping into that dumpster, and we're coming back out with some weird manual for Common Lisp from 1970 in our filthy mall. We're finding these delicious morsels of discarded ideas that maybe deserve to come back. We're reaching back beyond a fault line, whether we realize it or not. On one side of this line, there is the world of computing before it became synonymous with capitalism. We're reaching back to an era where people came to computers with wants and needs. The want and need to socialize, the want and need to create, to recreate. So we're reaching backwards from an era where socializing, creation, and recreation is dictated, it's mediated by corporate entities who most assuredly think that you're garbage. You are not people to them. Your wants and needs to socialize, to feel loved, to love, irrelevant. Did they convert you? Did you click? Did an ad dollar change hands? So that's why we're rooting around in the dumpsters of the old. Instead of becoming the trash that corporations think that we are, worthy only for compaction, the extraction of capital, and the combustion and the crematory of startup culture. We are tinkerers in the slums of the decrepit space station. Life support is failing, orbit is drifting, but yet we're rebuilding these outdated androids, and we're teaching them to love poetry. A result of this is something that I call temporal displacement. From a distance, we're a computing community, a community that computes. You could argue that this great thing we call tech, or the tech industry, is also a computing community. But whereas the tech industry marks time by corporate software releases, operating system versions, Hacker News headlines, we mark our eras differently. Time moves differently for us on town. We add another ring to the great tree of town. I wanted to use a plant metaphor really bad. We add another ring to our trunk when somebody releases something beautiful. or meaningful, something that excites us. We remember when we made friends, we remember when we banned enemies. I think that this kind of chronology has helped us be resilient in the face of things like absentee systems, or a world that's just scary. So, I'm going to end with a confession. At the start of 2024, I had kind of made up my mind to retire. I decided maybe it's time to move on from doing Tilted Town. I was pretty sure that was what I wanted, but I wasn't completely sure, and I wrote up a lot of words about it. I wrote up some contingency plans and different scenarios. A few people know about this. There's actually a document in my home directory that's, well, not right on the top level, but I left it world readable. I wanted to see if anybody found it. A few people did, which led to some awkward conversations. And so, I was really cheering on this about when I first saw posts on our mailing list about having a Tilted Town conference. The mailing lists are great, by the way. Please use them more. Thank you, Natalia, for making them. So I saw these posts about a Tilted Town conference, and my reaction was like, cool, people want that? That's really exciting. I'm delighted that people are actually talking about this kind of event. And because that felt so good, I made a deal with myself. I said, I'm going to do what I can to make this happen and see what I can do to help bring people together in person, and I'll see that event through, and that is when I'll decide. Get to that point, I'll make the decision. So here we are, and 2 days ago, I was taking a walk. I had to go get cat food. And I was walking back from the grocery store, and it kind of hit me like, it's the 9th. Tomorrow's the 10th. Like, holy shit, people are going to show up. Human beings are going to show up in less than 24 hours. Like, that was a very intense realization. And, that got me thinking about that mailing list post, and it got me thinking about the fact that I had been considering retiring, which I realized I had just forgotten. It was gone. It had just faded away. I don't even know the last time I had considered this. In the months leading up to this event, I've just been excited, I've just been happy. I never made a conscious decision to let go of that. It was just gone. And I thought that was really funny. So I was laughing to myself on the sidewalk. Just a guy wearing a backpack full of cat food, laughing to himself on the sidewalk on a beautiful, beautiful autumn day. So no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not retiring. I'm probably not going to be the guy who reviews applications forever. But I don't have this looming sensation anymore every day. Like, do you keep going or not? Is this your thing or not? So that's gone. That's just evaporated. I'll let you know if that changes. But so you're stuck with me. When I first made this place, it was a cozy burrow to escape social media, a shelter to ride out a storm. Unfortunately, I don't think the storm stopped. I don't think it abated. I think we need cozy burrows now more than ever. So in closing, thank you for sharing this cozy burrow with me. I will be grateful forever. Here's to another 10 years. Correct.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But we're very glad that you're still